G'day guys, Matt here from Not in the Manual. So this is my first autopilot test with the new Model Y. So for those of you that don't know, this is my new 2023 Tesla Model Y rear wheel drive, and I've got the 20-inch wheels. It's the LFP battery, 60 kilowatt hour LFP battery. So this is only my second commute to work. So what we'll do here is, this is a normal point that I normally engage autopilot. So we'll do the double tap on the stalk and we're here. So yeah, the car took about 100 kilometers to calibrate the cameras. So you can feel here, this car rides so much better on the bumps. So we've got a few bumps here. You know, you would have heard them in the video the other day and it really just shook the camera around. So the Model 3 I had was a 2021 SR Plus, so your standard range with the LFP battery, the 55 kilowatt hour LFP, and it had the performance motor. So I'm sort of missing that bit of extra torque and power. So you can see here the car braking a bit because some of those cars were sitting out there in that lane and it wasn't sure what they were doing. And of course they're at a standstill and I'm doing 70. So the car just shaved a little bit off the speed there, which is quite normal. I still wouldn't class that as phantom braking, same as I said the other day, because there was actually something for it to brake, and if the vision is limited. Phantom braking to me is more just when the car is braking for nothing. So it could just be shadows on the road. It could think it's seeing a car coming out of a driveway even. Just sort of braking for nothing in particular. So if it's having trouble seeing over the crest of a hill and it slows down, or in that scenario there where it's just being cautious, I really don't class that as a phantom brake. That's why when people mention about having phantom braking, I really don't get that much phantom braking. Occasionally, I definitely don't get as much as I used to. So it's hit and miss with the updates for the car. So sometimes an update can actually make things worse instead of improving it. So we had a few more pothole bumps there this morning. I'm really happy with how this car is riding over the bumps. So a lot of people were telling me don't go for the 20-inch wheels, your ride quality, your economy, your expensive tires. And yeah, a lot of that's just, it's really just not true with the Model Y. I think with the old suspension, it probably made sense going for the 19-inch wheels with the harsher suspension. That probably made a bit of a difference. But now with this better suspension, I'm super happy with the ride quality of the 20-inch wheels. So you can see they're just going through a school zone. It's not quite school zone time yet, 7:59. So the next school zone we go through will be actually activated as a school zone, so we will have the 40 km/h zone. But today, you know, I covered a lot of the basics in the previous video, but today it's really just seeing how the Model Y handles the traffic here and just autopilot in general. Just comparing it to the baseline I set last week with the same software version as this car. So this car is on 2023.26.8. Well, I think my car last week was on .7, so .8 came out over the weekend, but that will really just be a couple of bug fixes. There usually isn't a change in autopilot with those little incremental bug fix updates. But that autopilot run I thought was actually quite good. The car still just played up in the same places as it usually does, but I just found in the areas where the car normally performs okay, it's just been a bit smoother. So this stop-start traffic, the car is a lot smoother. Now with the Model Y, let's see this morning, I did the commute yesterday, but the way things were, I just didn't get to use autopilot for the whole trip. And yeah, so today we'll just try and use it as much as we can. So coming up here to the truck and bus 40 speed limit sign, so the car is going to read that sign and set 40, which it has done. And that's what I was telling you the other day as well, is just be super careful when you go to do your set speed, holding the stalk down. Touching the screen, you're obviously going to see that, you know, you're going to see that set speed there. So when you touch it, you know that's going to change to 40. So we're in standstill here, so it doesn't really matter. So what we can do, we'll just see what speed it reads off the next sign here, which has got the 40 and the 70 on the same sign. And now it's potluck with what it picks up. And you can see there it's showing a 70 and a 40 speed sign next to each other. So we can't really zoom in on that, but yeah, maybe looking through the straight camera here, we can see it. But as we get closer, you'll start to see that it's displaying both speed signs. So that sign there says 40 for trucks and buses, 70 for all other vehicles. So yeah, it's a bit of a tricky zone. This is where I just wonder how full self-driving is going to cope with these sort of things, because at the moment it's not going to be smart enough to interpret a sign like that. So it's picked 70, so I can just touch that 70 again and it's set it to there. So this is a normal sort of stop-start traffic area. So the other thing Autopilot won't do, there's an area here where it says keep clear. Now if you end up being that vehicle that needs to keep that clear, you'll have to turn Autopilot off and stop. It's not going to read that and keep that section of the road clear. So as you can see, we have a lot of motorbikes here as well that cut down the gaps between the cars. The car is better at handling that these days. It doesn't seem to react to the motorbikes cutting down the gap as much as it used to. If they come in front of the car, it will tend to have a bit of a reaction, but when they tend to creep up beside the car in traffic, look, my experience is that the car doesn't really react that much. So we'll see, because I'm sure though there's some motorbikes back there which will catch up. But you did see those two motorbikes came through earlier, the car didn't react at all. So you know, it's getting much better with those scenarios. So the acceleration and braking here now has been pretty good. Nice and smooth. So yeah, I didn't set up scan my Tesla, but I think my battery should be reasonably warm today. It wasn't super cold last night. Yeah, 21.8, so yeah, it's still cold enough to limit the regen, but I think because I'm down to 69% and the ambient temperature's 15, usually if the ambient temperature's above 15 and the battery's over 20, it usually doesn't limit your regen too harsh with the LFP battery. But I have noticed with the Y here, it's not limiting the regen as much as it did with the Model 3 with the 55 kilowatt hour LFP. So I don't know if that's a difference with the bigger LFP, but it did give me the cold battery regen braking limited symbol here the other day. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, been super happy with the Model Y. I mean, yeah, it doesn't have as much torque as the Model 3 did with that performance motor. This has the 3D7 motor, which is the same as what the rear-wheel drive Model 3 has. So this is basically the same battery and drive unit as the Model 3 rear-wheel drive has as well, and I'm pretty sure it's the same power and torque allowed with the motor. So this one here, I've managed to just do a couple of quick accelerations on here, and it tends to get pretty close to 230 kilowatts still, which I'm surprised by, because the basic rating for this motor is 190 kilowatts at 5,400 RPM and 340 Newton meters of torque maximum. So it's quite a bit lower than the 3D6 motor and power unit that I had in the Model 3 55 kilowatt hour. So it was 220 kilowatts nominal rating at 5,000 RPM. So it was be able to build up that power at a lower RPM because of the higher torque. So it had 440 Newton meters of torque. I really don't know why they didn't fit that motor to the Model Y. That would have been a much better option for a slightly heavier car. Now this car is roughly sort of 1.9 ton, and my Model 3 with the LFP 55 kilowatt hour was 1.7 ton. They're really not super heavyweight cars, and that's the thing with Tesla. They build efficient, you know, at this lower end for the rear wheel drives. Even the long range and the performance, I mean, they're not as heavy as a lot of other EVs. So Tesla try and build efficient cars so they don't need super massive batteries in them. And the majority of people are going to be buying the lower range cars, and they're not super heavy. And I mean, that's just a load of garbage anyway about EVs causing car parks to collapse or bridges to collapse. I mean, look at all these dual cab utes. I mean, the weight of an EV has nothing on a dual cab ute. But yeah, so yeah, this being, you know, that 1.9 ton, that extra couple of 100 kilos heavier than the Model 3, I think could have done with that 3D6 performance motor with that bit of extra torque. It still wouldn't have brought this car down below 6 seconds 0 to 100, but it just would have made it, you know, just give it a bit more of a punchy feel to it. And that would have been a much nicer setup. But look, in saying that, this car has more than enough power, more than enough torque for everyone. I've been super happy with it. Yeah, it's not as punchy as the Model 3, but it's a different car. I just love sitting up high here, and you can see here this morning Autopilot works really well. I haven't come up to the problem areas yet, but I haven't had to take over. It's just the one thing with Tesla is it just keeps the car centered in the lane. And the only weak point, I guess, with the auto steer is when you have, for us here in Australia, it's the sweeping right-hand turns. The car tends to hang over in the left-hand side of the lane, really close to the line, and it tends to get right on the outside there. And that's why I really wanted to get the Model Y now while it still has the ultrasonic sensors on it. And you can often see them turn red, and the car will sort of pull over and maintain the distance from the cars in the other lane. You can see there it handles that little wiggle okay as well. It does sort of tend to stick to the left-hand side of that lane a bit too much for my liking, but it's not going to hit the cars in the other lane. And that's the thing with Autopilot is if a car starts to come into your lane, the car will either move, or most of the time what it does is jumps on the brakes to try and get you out of that situation. Wow, look at that. That was super smooth there. I think with these other cars around for the car to see, it handled that scenario. So those guidelines for the other road coming in for the other cars, they tend to confuse the car a bit, but it handled that well. But it is quite random, so one day it will do that perfectly, the next day it won't. So you really just got to not get complacent with those things. So this is my everyday commute, so I know where the car isn't going to work that well with Autopilot. But you can see here, since I engaged it, I've been lucky with the red lights. I've been able to sit behind other cars, so it pulls up behind. Rather than me talking the whole time today, because I don't really have as much of the basics to go through with you, I'm going to leave the camera running, and then I will just make commentary where I need to. So yeah, we'll just time lapse things like this, sitting at traffic lights and driving in between when there's really it's not really doing too much. My theory with the Model Y was having the cameras up here and the pillar cameras, even the repeater cameras at the side, are sitting up a bit higher than the Model 3. Now, the Model Y is roughly about 200 millimeters taller than the Model 3. And I'm doing that all off the top of my head, so I could be wrong, but it's definitely the cameras are going to be sitting at least that much higher. So I think that's going to give it a better view over the cars. Now, looking at the visualizations, I've found that the Model Y does tend to show me a lot more here. Whether that's just the Ryzen processor in the infotainment being able to process that data from the Autopilot computer a lot better, I don't know, but definitely the visualizations has been able to see a lot further, and that's definitely a lot smoother with the visualizations. But yeah, look, it's working quite well. I don't know how I could gauge that. So I just got to see over time if the Model Y ends up being a lot more consistent with its Autopilot performance. So coming up to school zone here, we've got the flashing lights, so the school zone is active. Maybe, whoa, a bit of harsh braking there. That car in front really slowed down quite quickly, so that wasn't the car. It had to react. So 40, I can either press here, or I could have held the stalk down. This school zone catches a lot of cars. There was a camera there. I don't know if we caught it in the footage. You saw the speed camera flash. So it gets a lot of cars coming this way. This one's a little bit confusing because you have the traffic lights to stop at mid school zone, And that confuses a lot of people. They sit at the traffic light stopped and then they forget they're in a school zone, they take off and get pinged by the camera. So that camera there must make the government a lot of money. So here we go back into the 70 zone again. You have to give it a helping hand to get it up to speed, unless you want to annoy the cars behind you. So coming up here in this scenario, you saw that car change lanes and then leaves a bigger gap here. My Volkswagen Tiguan before this used to have this traffic assist like we're doing here, traffic aware cruise control. Now, if the car did that, my Volkswagen would have accelerated, seeing that the road was clear in front before it then realized there were stopped cars. So it was pretty horrible. The Tesla Autopilot is much smoother than that. So it never used to be like this. When I first got my Tesla, it wasn't that great to use in stop-start traffic initially. And then it got better until they turned the radar off in that car, and then it became bad. And it's taken some time now, but we're back to a usable autopilot system in traffic situations. There we are, another big pothole. Car handled it quite well. There's another Model Y here, the same as mine. Except they go in for the white interior. Okay, let's see how it handles this scenario here. We've got lines going all over the place. We've got stopped cars on the left. It's probably slowed down a bit more than it should have, and it's just tried to turn into that lane on the right, which is new, even though there were cars around. So that's still a bit of a problem area there. But that was quite easy for me to take over. You just hold the car in the line that you want it to go in, and then auto steer disengages. Traffic aware cruise control stays on. So you can see here, I still haven't had to touch the brake and accelerator, and we'll double tap to put autopilot back on. We'll tap there to slow down for the school zone. So yeah, one disengagement in 20 minutes. Not too bad. Coming up to another problem spot. There we go. Even with a car next to me, it tried to steer across. Yeah. I think it'll be a long time before they get the software. Hardware 4 or not, that's a software issue. That's nothing to do with the quality of the cameras. That's purely a software issue, in my opinion anyway. That's why I'm not too fussed about having hardware 3 or hardware 4 at the moment, because the software is that far behind the hardware. Yeah, maybe hardware 4 might smooth out some things, but I think hardware 3 is just so capable, and it will be capable of full self-driving, but it's the software that's limiting it at the moment. So in that scenario there, it's trying to follow the lines instead of following the traffic around it. So it's a matter of finding that balance between the car looking at following the path of the car in front, or following the path of the lines on the road. So you can see here there's a mess of lines, but it just does a good job of following the car in front. I think people need to understand that hardware 4 isn't just going to automatically transform full self-driving or autopilot. I think we're still a long way off that being a perfect system. And in saying that, I still love the system. I still love autopilot. I'm just trying to be honest about it and just give you my experience and my thoughts on it. I'm not a programmer. I don't write code. I don't do any of that. But for me, with my observations, it just still feels like it's a software issue. I think when you see how the car has improved and gets over things that it was doing badly before, you can see that that's improved because of software. And I still think we're just seeing that same sort of limitation here. I think in some days when it can get it right and other days it doesn't. Yeah, I don't know. That's just how I feel at the moment. So I think I wanted to just stick with hardware 3 at the moment, get into a better car now, and then let's see in a couple of years' time if autopilot and full self-driving features have improved so much that it's worth upgrading the car at that time, or you may find they've upgraded the seats or the performance or the battery or something that makes it worthwhile. I don't think if for me, I didn't want to hold off getting into a fantastic car, a better car for our family, just for the sake of clearer cameras right now. It just didn't make sense to me. But am I disappointed that the car didn't have hardware 4? Yes, I am. I am disappointed, but was it worth potentially putting off having this car for another year? Not really. If I had have known about hardware 4 possibly before ordering the car, it would have made it a bit more difficult, I guess, to make the decision. But because I already had the car on order, that sort of made me lean towards just sticking with this car, getting it with hardware 3, getting it with the ultrasonic sensors, and yeah, I'm happy, no regrets. Look out the window there, it's a nice view along the river here. That's looking over towards the city. This is where I feel the car has improved. You can see that car came into the lane here, and what I'm not sure is the car seeing the indicator or not, or is it seeing the car make the motion to come into the lane and then slow down? But that is a much smoother process than it used to be. Okay, just had to take over there. Normally doesn't mess up on that part. I think because there was no car next to me. It's really weird. I think it should be able to just follow the car in front. Here's another one where it sometimes messes up. A little bit wobbly, but it stayed in the lane. Okay, I've got to disengage here. There's no car in front of me to stop behind. Disengage to take the freeway entrance here. So navigate and autopilot won't work on that type of road because it's not a controlled access. So navigate and autopilot will work on the freeway here. Now it doesn't look like there's as much traffic as the other day, so we'll be able to do a navigate on autopilot test here on the freeway. So I'll turn navigate on autopilot on. Accelerate up to 80. So you can see there, because this is a single lane road, it wouldn't let me engage over 80 kilometers an hour. So yeah, let's see how it handles this merge here. We've got cars merging in. So you can see navigate on autopilot hasn't engaged yet. It will engage up here further. And let's see if the car indicates to get into this ending lane here. Yep, so we've got to cancel that. So that lane's ended just there. It's still trying to put me into that lane. There we go, navigate on autopilot's engaged. We've got the thick blue line. Let's see how it handles the exit that I need to take down here. So guys, I'll end the video down here when we get off the freeway. So I really hope you've appreciated this. I'm struggling to get the camera right in this scenario. We've got a bright sky and a dark interior of the car, it's very difficult. So hopefully this has been able to work out today. If anyone's got any tips for me, I've tried using ND filters. If I use ND filters, we can get the exposure of the sky right, but then the interior shots have got a lot of noise in them as well. So might have to see. What I haven't done is put the camera in pro mode and get the sky exposed and then just deal with the rest with no ND filter. But I'm a bit reluctant to do that, because you start putting it into a fixed set mode, then you can end up with some garbage footage. So maybe I'll have to try the two camera setup and just try a different couple of things. But I think it serves its purpose. So you can see here, navigating on autopilot has kept me on this exit. It's going to automatically change me into this lane. I didn't have to give any confirmation. That was quite smooth, but this is a really perfect sort of scenario for navigate on autopilot. So yeah, we'll turn navigate on autopilot off. So yeah, guys, that's pretty much the end of the trip. So hopefully we've been able to demonstrate to you there. I think that the car performed pretty comparably to the Model 3. And I mean, look, it's on hardware 3 as well. I didn't expect it to be dramatically different. I think having the cameras higher up probably does help this car be marginally better with the acceleration and the braking, and I guess seeing the lane markings further along. So guys, yeah, I think that performed pretty well. You can see the car probably did 90% of the driving this morning, and just gets rid of some of that stress. So as long as you're prepared that some of those intersections that the car has to go through, that it's not going to do a perfect job. Autopilot's strong point is freeway driving, and I know that's not perfect either, but I think it's probably just going to do 98% of your freeway driving without any issues whatsoever. And you'll get to learn the scenarios where the car doesn't always perform at its best. And you're still going to love autopilot anyway. It really just depends on your attitude. I really just like to give things a go and give them the benefit of the doubt and not expect too much. I mean, this isn't full self-driving. This is autopilot. It's active driver assist. So as long as you don't expect too much from it, I think you'll really enjoy using autopilot like I do. So guys, thanks for watching another long video with me, and I really do appreciate it, and I appreciate your feedback and comments. They really motivate me to make more videos. So guys, once again, thank you, and I'll catch you next video.